or among the class. Good evening. Welcome to our Gita Wisdom with Lakshmi class. Thank you all for being here with me this evening. So we're going to continue. This is our July 1st. Happy July. Hey, Victor. Happy July, everyone. And thank you for being with me this evening. So we're going to continue our study of the second chapter, a very important chapter. There's a small book, maybe I'll have just like a special class, but there's a small book called the Gita Mahatmya, and I just gave 2 classes on the Gita Mahatmya just this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Very nice. And it's comprised of stories. Each chapter has a story which ultimately shows the benefit of studying that chapter. So it's a wonderful, it's in story format, so it's very enjoyable, and also it has relevance as far as what the chapters themselves, by meditating on that chapter, the ultimate benefit that can be experienced. So let us begin with the second chapter. And I believe we left off on chapter 2, text 53. So what I normally like to do is at least give you a sense of the Gita culture by reading some Sanskrit, and then the translation, and then we'll comment a little bit on each. Shruti vipratipanate yada stasyati nischala samadao vachala buddhis tada yogam abhapsyasi. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained divine consciousness. Just let me make an adjustment here so this doesn't go out. The one thing about the Vedas, I think I mentioned in previous classes, that the Vedas is considered like a manual for the universe. When the universe came to be, according to the Vedas themselves, when the universe came into being, the Vedas also came into being, and basically they served as a guideline, a guidebook for how we can interact within this universe. So there are many different elements to the Vedas. There's many different levels of consciousness that it addresses. It's not just one book, you accept it or you reject it, etc., but it is many different levels of consciousness that it can deal with, which means humanity is composed of many different personalities, many unique personalities, who are elevated to a certain degree or another in consciousness. So the Veda's primary purpose is to have a beginning point for anyone on any level of consciousness. And therefore, within the framework of the Vedas, there are all kinds of rituals and things that you do, that you can perform in order, according to your level of consciousness, according to your ability to understand. And this way, it will help you to gradually advance. Now, a person may not even know it, that they're on a particular level, but they become attracted to that portion of the Vedas, which has a particular appeal for them due to their level of consciousness without even knowing it. For instance, there's a section of the Vedas that tells you how to have a higher sense of gratification. And here in this world, and also according to the Vedas, um, you hear in the Abrahamic religions a mention of heaven and hell. In the Vedas, there is a heaven and there is a hell, or a hellish planet and heavenly planets, to be more specific. But that's all within the context of the material universe. The heavenly planets are places of greater sense of enjoyment, um, longer lifespan, you don't experience disease, etc. And the hellish planets also may have some benefits to it, but they also have some detriments to it. So the hellish and the heavenly, according to the Vedas, means actually it matches to levels of consciousness. Actually, everything, according to the Vedas, there's 400,000 levels of consciousness in the human being, in the human race alone. All other animals and the various species, they reflect levels of consciousness also. But when the soul transmigrates up to the point of human species within the framework of humanity, there's described as having 400,000 levels of consciousness, and each level of consciousness will reflect a certain degree of understanding, a certain adherence to either a religion or a cultural influence, etc., just based on a level of consciousness that can understand what is being given to them, either in religion or in their culture. Different strokes for different folks, they say. So different cultures have a certain appeal to certain levels of consciousness. For instance, there are certain levels of consciousness, certain cultures, where they pretty much eat anything. They can eat, all kinds of animals and make all kinds of preparations out of carcasses and et cetera, that would maybe not be appealing to someone like you all, because your level of consciousness realizes that food is important not only to your health but also to your consciousness. So all of these different things are there. So what you have is various rituals according to level of consciousness. Not only rituals, but there's offerings to forefathers, deceased relatives. There are offerings to higher species within humanity, which are known as demigods. All of these things are there. And sometimes I see in my travelings through the yoga community, I see a lot of people involved in, chanting different mantras or chanting every mantra. And with the reality being that mantra is meant for focusing on a particular recipient of the mantra. For instance, if you're chanting Ganesh, Sri Ganesha Sharanam, it's to that demigod known as Ganesh, or you're chanting to Indra or Shiva or any one of the demigods. That also reflects a certain level of consciousness that you can achieve. So whether it's prayers or incantations or as I said before, going to the sacred bodies of water, offerings to forefathers, or mystic cities. These are all accomplishments that can be there. So why does Krishna say in this particular verse, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained divine consciousness. So what's Krishna saying here? That the Vedas encompass all these incantations and mantras and personalities and places and ritualistic performances and obligations to ancestors. All of these different things can be there, and they can be numerous. And the execution of these things can be numerous also. But what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita is that Veda also means Siddhanta. Veda means that according to level of consciousness, there are different ritualistic performances that you can do as outlined in the Vedas. But ultimately, the Siddhanta of the Vedas is to elevate our consciousness to a point where it is searching and achieving a relationship, a loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So in this understanding, that is why Krishna is saying this. There's so many different incantations, so many different things that you can do, but when consciousness remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained divine consciousness. Now, it's very unique to understand how Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra approaches this. He actually, in his third pada, I think it's called the Vibhuti Pada, he talks about mystic potencies, mystic powers. And mystic powers are very, very, very mystical and very unique in their approach. But the yogi can, by virtue of practice of the yoga system, the yoga process, they can achieve these powers, these mystic potencies. Now, in some different scriptures of the Vedic literatures, aspects of the Vedic literatures, they'll talk about 8 major cities and 10 minor cities. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he talks about it gives around 10 different mystic cities. I just wanted to run them by you to let you see what I'm talking about in terms of the snares that can be given in the Vedas, how one can be caught up in a snare that is offered by the Vedas. So even these mystic cities are very powerful and they're very attractive because you can do amazing things. For instance, number one mystic city is where you can obtain knowledge of past and future. In other words, you can see the future and you can look into the past and understand the nature of the past. This can be achieved by performing samyama on the flow of change. Samyama means, if you're familiar with the Yoga Sutras, the Ashtanga system, which is yama niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, and then very internal aspects, which is called dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So when one practices dharana, concentration, which deepens into dhyana, meditation, which ultimately one becomes fixed on the meditation, and it's called samadhi. One perform that's in Sanskrit that's called samyama. So when one does that, they get into the nuance or the essence of what their meditation actually is. So by performing samyama on the flow of change, understanding the change that is there within the time frame, a yogi can gain knowledge of past and future. Number two, knowledge of other people's minds. By samyama, again, by this performance of concentration, meditation, and samadhi or absorption, on another's mind. In other words, knowing or making an effort, a concentrative effort, a yogic effort to understand another's mind. A yogi can perceive their thoughts and mental states. They can actually perceive other people's thoughts, know what they're thinking, and know their mental states. Now, some people intuitively may have an ability to do that. You just by feeling where a person is at, or using the word feeling, you can actually know, their state of mind beyond what they're, putting forth or pretending. You can actually feel what's actually going on in their mind. This is a mystic power, a mystic potency. Then number three, mystic power is invisibility. Invisibility is achieved by doing this meditation of concentration, meditation, and samadhi or absorption, on the form of the body. And then, how do we perceive form? We perceive form through light, right? Light is reflected off of form, which is picked up by our eyes and translated into what it actually is. So the ability to suspend the light that's coming back to you, and which is actually revealing your form, you can achieve a state of invisibility. Now, I can go on and on with the mystic cities, which are quite interesting. But the point to note here, that Patanjali, even after explaining these benefits that can be achieved by yogic meditation, he says that's not really the goal of yoga. Goal is not, you can achieve these great mystic potencies, but that's not the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is to link up or to connect your self, your Atma, with the divine Atma, the supreme Atma, in the form of Bhagavan, or the supreme person. Because according to the Vedas, God, for want of a better word, can manifest in different ways according to how you approach. In the Gita, I believe it's the 4th chapter, Krishna says, as you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. So there are yoga systems like Jnana Yoga, by which you approach the Supreme through knowledge and through chanting of Mahavakyas. Mahavakyas means these great mantras like Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi means I am Brahman. And going into meditation on such a mantra, etc., that is a process, a yoga system by which we can come in connection with or in contact with what is called Brahman. Brahman is the spiritual and pervasive spiritual energy, which is the substance of everything, both material and spiritual. Our soul, the substance of the soul, is Brahman. And Brahman can be given an understanding of the characteristics of Brahman is that it's Sat Chit Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And that is what the soul or the Atma is comprised of. So we can come in contact with those characteristics, those attributes, that nature of the self or the Atma. That's one connection that can be made with an aspect of the supreme divinity, because that Brahman actually, as sunshine emanates from the sun, then Brahman, or spiritual energy, emanates from the Supreme Person, Bhagavan. That emanation permeates everything and everywhere, just like sunshine in the universe. It reaches everywhere and everything, and it is actually the sustenance or the life-giving energy for all life. So that comparison between the sun and Brahman, what is Brahman? Brahman being the sunshine and the sun being the Supreme Person, that is given in the Vedas. So these different aspects of the Supreme can be realized through yoga, through the practice of yoga. Through bhakti yoga, for instance, one is practicing yoga in such a way that there is a loving relationship. The conscious effort of bhakti yoga is to have a loving relationship with the Supreme. Therefore, what does bhakti include? Bhakti includes song or kirtan, where we are singing the glories of our love for the Supreme. When we go to kirtan and we chant on different mantras, we're actually expressing the innermost regions of our heart through song, through melody, through rhythm, to have that connection, to establish that connection. Bhakti emphasizes on things which are more emotive, like song, like dance, like prasadam, which is foodstuffs offered to the Lord, and it's become blessed food, so to speak. So all of these things elicit an emotion response. There's the actual action, and then there's in bhakti, and then there is I think it's chesta, and then there is bhava, and the emotion that you experience as a result of this action. So in bhakti, there's two divisions. One division is where you have a guideline of actions to perform, and that's called vaidhi. That means that you learn certain aspects of a sadhana, and you implement those aspects of sadhana, or a practice on a daily basis. And even there may not be a love, that practice, that vaidhi bhakti practice, is actually purifying the heart and leading us towards love. In the Jnana Yoga, where in Brahman, there is also a sadhana, there's a meditation, and that practice is purifying the heart and leading one to connection with that spiritual unity, that spiritual oneness. So then the third aspect of divinity, the general category of divinity, is called Paramatma, super soul. That means divinity within the heart of every single living entity. Any living entity, anything that shows life force. There is a soul, or an atma, what is actually causing that life to exist within the body of that living entity. And then there is a super soul. The Sanskrit is paramama. There's a super soul there. So just through meditation, like Patanjali recommends in Yoga Sutras, and there are other sacred texts also which can connect you to that aspect of divinity, then this will give us an opportunity to advance and to connect on those different levels. Now, according to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham. What's yoginam mean? Of all the yogas, sarvesham, of all yogas that we're talking about here, is there the best yoga? Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana. Is there a best yoga? Yeah. It's to connect with the Supreme Person. to actually engage in love relationship, because the love relationship is all inclusive. That means we can understand all aspects of divinity, of the Supreme, through the process of bhakti. We can understand the sunshine emanating from the sun orb and the Supreme and the person who is within that sun orb and causing it all to happen. So the analogy, the parallel is that through the practice of bhakti, we do not earn knowledge or understanding. We actually become recipients of it by mercy, by grace. So that's why bhakti is considered the yoga of grace, because by performance or by executing sadhana, regular chanting, regular kirtan, regular swadhyaya, which means study of Bhagavad Gita, that's why it is so important. If you take yoga, if you're practicing yoga and you're not getting a sadhana, a connective sadhana, then you're getting exercise. Now that's fine. It's all right to get exercise because yoga provides some of the best exercise that exists on this planet. It's soft and it's involving, but there is so much more to it. So we really need to actually have a special blessing, a sukriti, in order to be able to enter into the process that will give us an understanding of the totality of the Supreme and the relationship that we can have on the many different levels that are there. So that's Siddhanta. When we talk about Vedas and the Siddhanta of the Vedas, what Krishna is saying here, no, not all of these various tiers. Okay, it's fine if you want to make advancement from down low on the ladder, but you have to keep going, it may take you many births, to go up this ladder of the Vedic regime, the incantations, the rituals, etc., etc. But with the process, like the process of bhakti, it's like taking the elevator. If you wanted to go to what's the famous building in New York City? I can't even think of the name right now. But any Eiffel Tower, I remember when I was a kid, it was the Washington Monument. We ran up the stairs of the Washington Monument, so it could take you a long time to get up those stairs, and you could be exhausted by the time you got up there. Or you could just take the elevator and get off the elevator. So the effort that we put in, the effort is in the bhakti system is focused on love relationship. And when you love someone and someone loves you in return, that is when you really get to know them. Isn't it a fact? Because in a loving relationship, we reveal ourselves. Rupa Goswami, one of the great spiritual masters of our lineage, has said that there are loving exchanges amongst us, devotees, practitioners, yogis. The six, he calls them six loving exchanges. And one is, to give a gift and to receive a gift. And the second one is to give prasadam and to receive prasadam. And the third one is, and this is very confidential, to hear somebody in confidence or to reveal your mind in confidence. Those are manifestations of six ways that you can exchange in love. So that's why bhakti is so potent. And Krishna is saying that's kind of like the elevator. In that practice of bhakti, we can advance very quickly, and we don't have to go through the rituals and all those things. They become secondary. Actually, when one in bhakti, when one elevates themselves to the point of just being spontaneously in love, then everything comes natural as to how you interact with the Supreme. It's just like if you have a loving relationship, the more you get to know the person, the more you get to love that person, you know instinctively what's pleasing to them, you know instinctively what's not pleasing to them, right? That kind of intimacy develops as a result of love. That kind of understanding, that kind of perspective is developed. So that's why Krishna is saying the all the flowery language of the poetry and the rituals, et cetera, and that look wonderful and appear wonderful, etc. There's really you can transcend that. You can get beyond that. Let me move on to next part. Okay, this is text 54, which reads, Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? And what is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk?" Important verse. What is it? What's the importance of this verse? It gives us an understanding of what is or who is a person in transcendence. Later on, Krishna will say in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi pratipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. That in order for you as someone who's in pursuit of spirituality, your spiritual development, you need to find someone who can guide you. It's like, let's say you wanted to go to the Himalayas and you've never been there before. So what's the intelligent thing to do? If you don't want to get lost, then you hire a guide. And the guide who knows the Himalayas and knows every aspect of that, then will take you different places and then also be able to return you back. So in spiritual life, if we don't exactly know what is Siddhanta, what is the goal, and how to achieve it, then what does Krishna say? What is tantamount in importance in terms of making advancement? It's to find that teacher. So it's not that a teacher, you just find someone that's charismatic or even someone that's knowledgeable. It's beyond charisma and it's beyond knowledge. It's actually that their very being is an example of love for the Supreme. They're very, the very fiber, the core of their existence. You can see it in their life. You can see it in their interactions. You can hear it in their words, how the connection can be made, in terms of understanding this world, what this world is of Prakriti, material elements, the other dimension of Atma, or the soul, the supreme soul, and the various components, the various ways that they interact with each other, the way the soul and the Supreme interact, the way the Supreme and Prakriti, the material energy, interacts, or the way the soul and Prakriti interacts. So all of these different combinations can be understood. And when they are understood, then we can function very, very nicely within this world and make tangible advancement on our path. But as I said, if you're in the Himalayas and you want to see it without getting lost, you seek a guide. Krishna advises the same thing. So in this next section, up to maybe 65 or 66 verses, Krishna will outline what are the characteristics of a person situated in transcendence. So Text 55, Arjuna says to Krishna, how do I recognize an advanced person, a spiritually advanced person? Krishna begins. Krishna says, O Partha, another name for Arjuna, when a man gives up all desire, all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Patanjali makes a similar statement when he tells what yoga is. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That yoga means the calming of the mind. And then in the next subsequent verses, the sutras, he'll say, then when one has achieved that calmness, then he is in the self. He is within the nature of the self, which is bliss. So Krishna is saying the same thing here. How do we achieve that position of transcendence where we're totally satisfied within the self? You read stories of great bhakti yoga saints and sages. For instance, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, the 6 Goswamis that are there, they were totally self-satisfied. They can live under a different tree each evening. There was no real requirements for them. Like many people will say, if I have this, if I have a better job, I'll be happier. And then when I get that better job, I can get a nicer car and I'll be happier. Or I'll get a bigger house and I'll be happier. And it goes on unlimitedly within this world, because it's a mental concoction that happiness comes from achievement, achievement of things within the world, things that are comprised of material elements, and can give us some brief glimpse of happiness, but not santosh, not contentment, not fulfillment. So what Krishna is saying here, one of the first symptoms is that person mind has become peaceful, because desires agitate the mind. That's the agitation of the mind, desires. So what Krishna is saying here, the mind becomes peaceful. And that when that mind is peaceful, then it's placid. And one can see the self and live within the nature of the self. And for the Bhakti Yoga practitioner, our whole sadhana is to live within that nature of love and service. When you love someone, you serve someone. You serve that person. That's a natural manifestation of loving relationship. You want to give, not necessarily receive. The deeper the love is, the purer the love is, the more profound the love is, the greater desire to please your lover. The stronger the desire is to please your lover. And that takes priority over your pleasure. So this is the nature of loving relationship that's there. So Krishna is saying here, this is what happens. If you're concocting from the mind what will make you happy, as opposed to what really will make you happy, your very existence, your very being of a loving, pure, loving, living entity that is capable of giving without any requirements, without any stipulations or no strings attached. When you can have a relationship with the Supreme on that level, then when you meet someone of that level, that category, then you are meeting a person in transcendence. I can say, in all honesty, having association with my teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, this was a living example of pure bhakti. We could see anyone who had any kind of association or relationship with him could see that moment by moment, every moment of every waking moment, even sleeping moments of every day, he was absorbed in loving Krishna through his practice, through his sadhana, and teaching others how to love Krishna selflessly. So this is the first thing that Krishna says. The second characteristic that he gives is in text 56. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and he was free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So let's break that down. One who is not disturbed in mind. What is the nature of the mind? According to Patanjali, the nature of the mind is to provide ever increasing thoughts or vrittis, interactions, churnings and turnings. I think my wife was telling me the other day, she's studying a psychology course, and I think she was saying that we are capable of producing in a 24-hour period 60 to 80,000 different thoughts, many of which are repetitious. It's not like this is coming from the world of psychology, of course. So 60 to 80,000 thoughts that can create, and imagine when you lock on a disturbing thought, because the tendency is a greater percentage of the thoughts in individuals are negative and disturbing. And imagine if you have a tendency to lock onto that thought, a negative thought, that can plague you the whole day. And you can be thinking that thought 30,000 times in the course of a 24-hour period. Oh my God. The mind is capable of doing that. So what does Krishna say? No, for a person who is self-realized, a person situated in transcendence, that even when the threefold miseries are there, you know what the threefold miseries are? Adi Atmika, the miseries that come from yourself, your body, your mind. Adi Daivaka, the miseries that come from outside you, like the weather. If you're caught in a hurricane or a storm, rainstorm or hurricane or something like that. That's called Daivaka. That means that's coming from the Daiva, the Devas, the Indra with the rain, Varuna, the water, and so many different Vayu, the wind, so many different. So that's called Adidaivaka. It comes from outside you. One comes from your mind or your body, the miseries of the mind and body that are there outside, and the Adibhautika. Bhautika indicates other living entities. So I'm blessed, totally blessed with a beautiful backyard. And every morning and evening, I go and I perform my japa there, especially in the morning. When it comes to a certain point of the morning, when the sun is rising, then out come the Baudikas, the attack of the Adi Bautika. That means the mosquitoes and the gnats and all that. So here I am in this beautiful environment, lovely flowering bushes and trees and a body of water, a swimming pool, and everything looks wonderful. And then you get attacked. Oh, in the ears, and then I have to go inside. So what Krishna is saying here, when the mind is not disturbed, when those things which naturally occur are happening, or one is not distracted by being elated, being like happy, just so happy. The whole idea, when Krishna talks about yoga, and if you remember, it was text 48, I believe, his first definition of yoga was samatvam, meaning equanimity, equipoised, steady, and stable. Yeah, things are going to happen to you. But when it happens to a yogi, they remain stable. They remain steady. They remain equipoised. They do not get disturbed. So Krishna is saying here, if all these things are happening to you and you remain undisturbed, that is symptomatic of a yogi, of an advanced personality. And what else? Free from attachment. Attachment is what was the cause of Arjuna's dejection in the first chapter, if you remember. The first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna, the person, Vishada, dejection, yoga was his yoga. It was his catalyst to seek connection with the Supreme, deeper, more meaningful connection with the Supreme. So this is the nature of attachment. Later on, we'll see in verse of this chapter 62, which is not far ahead, Krishna says, what you contemplate, what you fix your mind and your senses on, we develop an attachment for those things. So just consider that in relationship to your day and how your day progresses. In what way does it progress? That is why sadhana is so important early in the morning. It is a very important time of the day, because if we can start with a healthy beginning where we're contemplating pure things, contemplating our connection with the Supreme, then that will set the stage for the rest of the day. So Krishna says in that chapter, what you're contemplating, that is your attachment. And think of this in relationship to yourself. What are the attachments, if you can identify? If not, it's a good exercise. But what are the attachments that are serving as impediments to your advancement in your loving relationship with God? You may not be able to answer that now, but it's a question that should be addressed. It's a question that should be raised and it should be addressed. What are the attachments that are impeding my progress? The mind is an expert at providing so many excuses, but what is it really? And one of the quintessential characteristics that are required to qualify yourself for advancement in spiritual life is just honesty. There's nothing more powerful than honesty. Even in the Bible, it says the truth will set you free. So just by being honest, and sometimes it's hard to look at your attachments. Sometimes you just don't want to go there. You don't want to think that, oh, this is me and this is what I'm doing, and et cetera, et cetera. But really, in order for someone to cure themselves of disease, they have to first get out of denial that they are diseased. I remember, I think I told this story to my father. He denied that he was sick. And for a year, he went from being 100, he was a little bit taller than me, and he was like 180 pounds of muscle. And he went from 180 pounds to 100 pounds in 1 year's time because of his denial of having anything wrong with him. So there's no cure and there's no hope. So similarly, if we use that analogy, that the only way we can get by our impediments on our path is to identify them and then to try to put into effect a strategy. Identify, understand the excuses that the mind is giving you. Become fully conversant with them. All right, you may not be at this point capable of dealing with it, changing the situation, but at least you have a really solid, tangible ground that you're on where you can understand, this is what I got to do. Okay, I may not be able to do it right now, but this is what I got to do. If I'm serious, and age has a way of doing that, making you a little bit more serious. I was just thinking about that today. I was driving in the car and I was thinking, I'm 75 years old. Oh my God. There's the illusion of good health, and you're not so far beyond where you were when you were 60 or 50, etc. But this reality is the body and the mind will become less and less and less efficient. That's the reality. Who can object to that statement, that reality? Right? It will become less and less efficient. You won't hear as well. You won't see as well. You won't think as fast. You won't move as fast. That's just the reality. So that's honest. It's just an honest assessment of my situation. And then hopefully that honest assessment of that situation that you have, whether you're 30 or you're 75 or 79, the honest assessment should bring you towards a seriousness towards your sadhana, your practice, your spiritual pursuit. If you happen to be in your 30s, boy, are you fortunate. You're coming in contact with at a younger age where your senses may still be strong. So it's not a matter of sense suppression. Yoga is not a matter of sense suppression. And when Krishna says it's important to control the mind and the senses, and you'll see that's one of the characteristics of an advanced person, then it's not a matter of suppression. It's a matter that your sadhana works in such a way that it gives you an experience of something better. How you can use your senses, your mind to obtain or be involved in an experience which is giving you a higher sense of joy, pleasure, happiness through your practice, your sadhana. That's param drishtva nivartate. You see, through greater. It's like, you drink coffee, right? And coffee gives you a little buzz, right? But it also has a lot of other side effects to it. And what if you were able to find, like my wife, what she does is she squeezes fresh ginger and lemon and takes a shot of it, and it gives her that energy boost. So, is it healthier? Yeah, it is. Ginger, helps with digestion. Ginger helps so many ways. Plus, It can give you an energy boost. So it's not question, bhakti is not a question of suppression of senses. It's a question of utilizing your senses and your mind in service to the Supreme. And then what you get from that, the result, is so joyous that everything else kind of other pursuits of sense gratification pale by comparison. So what other thing does Krishna say? He says here, text 57 reads, in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. There's always some upheaval in our worlds, no? So something always going on, something which is seemingly good or seemingly bad, evil. But just to plow through it, just to keep steady, keep stable, and to plow. One who is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge of the soul, of the self, and that person is considered very advanced. Text 58. Here's a good metaphor that Krishna uses. Excuse me. One who's able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Another symptom, being able to perform pratyahara. That's the word that Patanjali uses in Yoga Sutras. Pratyahara means taking the senses, which are constantly going out, and seeking gratification from that which is without, and then bring them in, and understanding the nature of the self, drawing the senses in. That is and the example used is the tortoise. The tortoise can be there, and all of his limbs can be drawn within his shell for perfect safety. So Krishna said that's another symptom. Text 59, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. And here we're talking about suppression of senses. Krishna is saying it's not about suppressing the senses, restricting the senses from sense enjoyment. Because if the taste is still there, you'll succumb. So it's a matter of recognizing, your nature, and then taking your unique position, your unique proclivities, inclinations, and to direct them in such a way that where you can direct them as offerings to the Lord. For instance, suppose you love to eat. So you cook nicely and you make an offering first to Krishna, to the Supreme. Or you're a musician, right? You love getting on your keyboard or your guitar or your drums, or you're a singer, you love to sing. Involve yourself in that way. It's music, right? Who can deny that you're playing the guitar, or you're playing chords and playing the melody line, or you're putting out a really nice rhythm, or you're vocalizing in such a way that it's very attractive, it's very beautiful. It's utilization of your inclination, and it's just dovetail. It's a kind of an older English word that Prabhupada used. You dovetail, or you direct your inclinations in a way that they become offerings. And then rather than suppressing senses, then the enjoyment you may get out of music can be fully satisfied by what you receive when you do kirtan. The enjoyment that you may get if you go to your favorite restaurant, for instance, but when you take the time and the effort and with loving devotion, you prepare a wonderful meal. Like today, we had just a wonderful lunch. It was simple, delicious, and offered to Krishna. It was a Karela. I'm going to start drooling now. It was a Karela vegetable preparation. And if you've ever had Karela before, it's a bitter vegetable, extremely good for the body, the liver, digestion, etc. So my wife made that. She made a wonderful dal soup with carrots and nicely spiced. She made rice, kind of a fancy rice, and we had another vegetable, cauliflower and jautia. You may not know what jautia is. I think another word for it is Edo or taro root. Yeah, taro root. You can get it in Indian stores. It's like a potato, but much healthier. So she made those four different preparations, and we sat and we ate, and everybody felt like not only did we feel nourished, but we felt satisfied, like an inner satisfaction that comes when something is complete. So sacrifice by offering your food to God, that is a completion of a cycle of a relationship, a cycle of relationship. And you just by eating, you become satisfied. Or a musician, you get on, and you're playing and you're absorbed in it. You really like that. Where if you're like me, you're really into rhythm and you get into a groove, and it's, it's a chord pattern or it's a rhythm that's supporting this wonderful mantra, which is in praise or glorification of the Supreme. So, yeah, there's satisfaction when you play a musical instrument, but there's santosh, contentment, fulfillment when you do it as an offering. So Krishna is saying this. So read one more, and then if there's any questions. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry the mind away, even of a man of discrimination who's endeavoring to control them. So Krishna is saying it's tough. The senses are tricky and they're fast and they're strong. Krishna will continue his instruction to Arjuna in the future verses. Anyone have any question or comment or observation or realization, anything that you may have that you can throw at me? Please just unmute yourself and speak up.
I have a question.
Okay, is that Jai Krishna?
It sure is.
Buenas
Um,
noches, hermano.
Buenas noches, hermano. Todo bien acá en la Caribe. Um, um, Actually, I have two questions, and they're polar opposites, and maybe we should say one for next week. It depends on how much time. But in the beginning of your class, you were mentioning, hell and the hellish planets and things like that. And actually, this morning on the beach, after my changing, I was thinking about this. And so our present lives and our past lives are based on our desires, our karma, and our actions. So which leads me to the question of, Yamaraj and Yamadutas really, I don't want to say confuse me because I understand the premise of it, but do the Yamadutas actually desire to inflict so much pain and horrible things to people, although we know we pay for the karma as described in the Bhagavatam, but is this their desire that they want to take these ghastly bodies and inflict this kind of pain on the people? And is it a permanent birth that these people take because they desire this so bad that they're never going to leave this hideous form?
It's
How's that
not
for a
permanent.
question?
It's not permanent. It certainly is a fulfillment of a desire, but actually it is a service. They're serving Yamaraj, and Yamaraj has a very specific and important duty in the functioning of the universe, and that is he's the god of death, and he's the one that holds us accountable for our actions, and then implementation of the punishments that are there for our actions. So the Yamadutas can, by virtue of their service, it's the same thing with Shiva. Shiva is known as most merciful, so merciful, because a lot of his followers are bhutas, pretas, pisachas, and that means ghosts, goblins, and ghouls, and and he's so merciful, he engages them in service to him, and they can advance from there. So I would think, I don't think it's a stretch to say same thing with the Amadeus. Certainly the Pretas and Bhutas and Pisachas, they got to that position because they earned it. Everyone gets their position by earning it. But, having association of Yamaraj, having the association of Shiva, that gives them the opportunity to advance, beyond that point. Yes.
So they desired to inflict all this horror and misery in other beings.
Yeah. I would have to,
So,
I would have to say yes. There must have been some desire there to take up that service.
well, I guess you're right because we see a lot of horror in this material world of
Oh
evil,
yeah. I
dastardly
mean,
things, the
I
Hitlers
mean,
and Jonestowns.
yeah. I mean, there's people who have gone in war through torture, and there are people who have done the torture. And then you look at the concentration camps, and in various shapes and forms, they still exist. Maybe not to the degree that Hitler put it into effect, but there are places on this planet right now which are horrible places to live, and they're the captors are inflicting punishment and torture on the captives. I mean, we even have Guantanamo Bay and places like that, and God knows what goes on there. Even the level of restriction and the treatment, etc. So yeah, there's tons of it. It's we sit where we sit, and to look at actually inflicting that amount of suffering on another living entity, and we just say, "Oh my God," But these people, in the concentration camps, not all of them were, horrible from the get-go. I'm sure some of the big ones, that inflicted the routine horrors, they probably had some very, very strong inclination. But there were other people that were hired, and that became, part of their service, basically, what they had to do. Of course, there was a whole philosophy which dehumanized people to the point of, they could be persecuted like that. You look at slavery, for instance, in this country, back when slavery was still in existence, and what Africans were subjected to by your ordinary townspeople. Let's say it may not have been everybody, may have been primarily the responsibility of the uh, the owners of the farms and whatever, but I'm sure they hired workers. So there's a whole philosophy built into horror which allows the human psyche to go there. And with the slaves, the African slaves, religion was used. Christianity certain aspects of Christianity were saying they weren't even human. They were like on the level of animals, so could be treated like that. And what to speak of the philosophy behind what uh, was there with the Jewish race. People were disgusted because there was such very crafty um, propaganda films that were put out and really dehumanized and made the Jewish race look like on something that had to be wiped out. So not everyone is on that level of heightened evil, but they can get drawn into it due to vulnerability.
Yeah, I remember in England a few years ago, I visited the Tower of London and I saw the torture racks and the torture masks and the things they put through. So you're right. Yeah, that explains it pretty vividly. I do have another question, but if time doesn't allow, I can carry it into next week.
Well, let's see if someone has a question or a comment,
Okay.
observation, or realization they like to share. If no one does, then pick up the ball. So let's open it up again. Anyone there? Mukti, you have something you'd like to add, Prabhu?
Yeah, Lakshmi, can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Yep.
Thank you. First of all, again, I have to say, express my gratitude for the tapasya that you perform every Tuesday night and pulling us together, and I just want to express my gratitude for that. And also, one thing I always appreciated about Srila Prabhupada was that one of his lessons amongst, a myriad of them was that it's always the direction that something is going in. So like Hiranyakashipu, after he was killed by Krishna, he actually became a demigod.
Mm.
And so it seems to be such a refreshing philosophy to live with that even this very moment, we can take a step in one direction or we can take a step in another direction. And therefore the chanting is a very good uh, you know, discipline to accept to keep that direction, So the same thing with the planet on a more empiric level, you know, which direction in Eastern, I teach Eastern healing, and it's always about the direction that the disease is going in. Can we get it to go in a better direction? So I just wanted to comment on that. One of the things I really appreciated about that, because this moment, that choice is ours. We can spiral off into, a darker direction, or we can go into another direction, sattvic, good, good direction.
Well, the one thing about the blessing of the human form of life is that we have choice. William James, um, early 20th century psychologist, philosopher, said the beauty of the human mind is its ability to choose its thoughts. So he wasn't even coming from the yoga perspective, but that's exactly what we're cultivating when we practice yoga. One of the things that we're cultivating is an ability to choose our thoughts. I mean, do we, like you were saying, do we want to go in this direction or do we want to go in that direction? Do we want to follow the mind down the trail of darkness? Or do we want to stop it in its tracks and say, no, no, this is much better. This is a much better course to take.
And it's very exemplified when you think of somebody like Hitler or Saddam Hussein or, Netanyahu. They were, by all rights, a sweet, sweet young kid one time, adorable and everything else. And then which direction were they affected by? So all glories to, again, RT and chanting and Bhagavad Gita classes and so on.
Yeah.
It's going in switching the direction.
Yeah. Yeah. It's flipping that switch. We have to flip that switch. See, because we have sun scars. Sun scars are impressions, previous impressions from, and that means when we're put in contact with something, an inclination can arise due to previous impressions. So that's why we have to be careful who we associate with. You have to be careful of the mind. You have to redirect the mind always. Well, it's an effort. Like if you're a parent and you have a child, you know yourself that if you're inattentive to that child, the child in a split second can get itself into trouble. The child into serious trouble, can wander out into the street, or do so many things. So we have to be attentive with our mind and make sure it doesn't go off, to provide the brakes. And those brakes come from the intelligence. And intelligence comes, especially in relationship to our spiritual path, it comes in relationship to purity. When we purify the intelligence. And our sadhana is comprised of things that purify our intelligence. Regular hearing of the Bhagavad Gita, that's called swadhyaya. Study of sacred texts purifies and fortifies the intelligence. The chanting of japa, meditation, glorification of the Supreme, that purifies the intelligence and causes the intelligence to be able to focus on the positive rather than getting caught up by the negative. All these things are there.
Thank you.
So, thank you all. I've held you. I'm looking at the time. Oh, it's 8:17. Okay. I thought it was 8:37. I'm so sorry I kept you all that long. Does anyone else have a comment that they would like to share, or an observation? Is
Namah
that Victor?
Shivaya, Brother Lakshmi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I really, it was the comment you made earlier, that the pull of the mind is so strong that it can overwhelm even an ardent devotee who is trying to control it.
Yep.
You spoke to my heart today, and the minute I heard that, I was put back in that place where, yeah, I do have a choice. And so that was very meaningful for me, and I'm glad you shared it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for opening up on that and sharing with us, the kinds of realization that you had. I mean, the one thing about these kinds of classes, and I would encourage all of you, to share your realizations. That's a real important. We're not here just learning knowledge. We're not here memorizing Sanskrit verses or just, learning things. We're actually trying to spark realization, of our situation. It's a very personal thing. It should be very personal to you and where you're at and what your priorities are and your considerations are. So something like that Victor just shared, it's important for us to hear. I try to give a class that has realizations, not just academics. I try to share whatever realizations I've had over the course of years, and try to make it more meaningful that way. So your realizations, your observations, your perspective are very important to us. So, Victor, thank you so much
Thank you
for that.
Brother.
Yes.
I would like to say something.
Shri Hari.
I find that the deeper I get into Krishna consciousness, the more Maya throws in my face.
Yes.
and it only tells me that, my own faith is what will carry me through. And to there's all kinds of things, and I just need to redouble my passion for Krishna.
Yeah, that's true. Your passion Otherwise, you'll have passion for something else.
Yikes.
It's like we're in this constant world of choice. We're not how do I say, we're not just neutral beings, just kind of existing. We have passions, and if we don't make the choice of how to direct those passions, then the mind will make the choice for you, and then where will you be? So I think one of the very important things to note for you all, myself included, is commitment. Commitment is so important. It's nice to go to a yoga studio and to go to an ecstatic dance and to do this and to do that. Those are all nice. They're fun. It's a way to interact with people. But there is also a level of commitment to yourself, and what is your goal, to set the priority as far as what your goal is in the utilization of your life and your breath. There's a very unique perspective coming from the Vedas, which describes that each one of us comes equipped with a certain amount of breaths according to our karma. And we don't know how many breaths this body is endowed with. So that should make us understand, or have us understand, that there is a shelf life to our existence in this current body. And it could be 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 or 100, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So
what it's about is choosing and then re-choosing.
right. There's always that constant battle. There is that battle. And that's why the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a battlefield. Because when you're in a battle, you cannot be complacent. Am I right? If you're on a battlefield, if you're in the middle of a battle, you cannot be complacent. You cannot be inattentive. You cannot be lax. Then what will happen to you? So we're in a battle. We're in a battlefield. We're fighting Maya. Maya is a very, very tricky adversary who knows her craft very, very well, because she's doing what she does in terms of alluring us in service to Krishna. It's a constant test to see, where we're really at. So short of being lovers of the Supreme, we have to be at least endeavorers of the Supreme, to please the Supreme. If we're not on the level of spontaneous love, and everything we do puts us in connection, at least we have to make the endeavor. And when Krishna sees that endeavor, then he knows you're serious.
Yes.
And
for me, it's like association is what helps me bridge that gap towards a more spiritual life.
Yeah, well, Krishna says it in the 9th chapter of the Gita. He says that association with advanced personalities is a key component in building faith, the strength of faith. So that's another choice that you make, right? Who you hang out with is your choice. No one's forcing you to go to a bar, right? No one's forcing you to go to a steakhouse. You make those choices, whatever choice you want to make. And when you demonstrate a willingness to make the right choice, meaning what is beneficial for my life, my spiritual life in particular. When I demonstrate a consistent, and there may be, some slack, some slip up. Krishna understands that. But if there is a consistent, even through the slip ups, you get up and rise again, like the phoenix. If there's consistency, Krishna takes note. He's there, and he promises in the Gita, he promises, I believe it's the 8th chapter, is it? Where he promises that my devotee will never perish. He makes that promise. So that means even if we have a bad slip up, if the conviction is there, if the commitment is there, is the determination is there, then we are never lost. We won't be lost. Okay. If there's nothing else, Jai Krishna, save that question for next week, okay?
Absolutely. And just to echo Mukti and Sri Hari about association and you giving the classes, I've been attending their classes for, I think, 5 years. And the only association I get here on the island is Monday night with Gayatri, his classes, and Tuesday night with you. So I appreciate these classes, and this is my association. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jai Krishna. Thank you for sharing with that. That's a very important point. And it also illustrates that you can get it even if you're in the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, or because Triana, I don't know if she's still here, but she's a mother of a young child. But Triana was here. She lives in Puerto Rico, and Jai Krishna has been in the Dominican Republic for many years. And wherever you are, you can make that arrangement to get association by the blessings of Zoom, Shri Zoom. So thanks, folks. Thank you all. Love being with you. Love spending my time with you. Looking forward to other opportunities. Thursday night, I think Friday, there's an opportunity, some July 4th, right? Victor, are you familiar with that?
That's right. On Friday evening at 6 p.m. Here in Del Rey, there's a beautiful gathering. I'm happy to post it in the chat if there's a chat. Also on Thursday evening in Boca Raton, we have our Thursday Kirtan. Will you be attending that, Brother Lakshmi, tomorrow? I mean, this Thursday. It's open mic.
Oh yes. Did he advertise it so far?
Not yet, but he told me privately that I would be in Val's Boca Raton house.
Oh, great environment. Yeah, I encourage you all Thursday, Friday, come out, be with us, chant till you can't, and then then I think on the weekend too, right? Sri Hari, is there an event on the weekend with the our congregation, our Indian congregation?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. So lots of opportunities. I was just thinking how blessed I was this week because Saturday I gave a class, Sunday I gave a class, Tuesday I'm giving a class, Thursday I'm going, by Krishna's grace, I'm going to the Kirtan at Val and Ira's. Friday, I more than likely, my wife and I will come to the 4th of July Kirtan and event that's there in Del Rey. And then if there's anything on the weekend, can you look it up real quick, Sri Hari?
Yes, it's Sunday, July the 6th at 4 p.m. in Parkland.
Srinivas's house, right? Okay, yeah, that's a Srinivas. That's a nice house, nice environment.
Yes, it is.
So you guys got lots
At
of
4 o'clock.
opportunities. You got lots of opportunities to hang with me if you want. All right. It's okay. So thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Have a
Hare
happy,
No.
healthy, and holy week.
Hare Krishna.
Namah Shivaya.
Jai
Hare Krishna, Hari Bol.
Jai. Jai Jai. Hari Bol.